back to another episode. We have probably the best jump player in the world. I'm just saying, he's fucking awesome. We have the Mad Keem, Eric. What's up, Eric? How you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Hanging out. This is our second podcast. The first one we're not going to talk about. We're going to talk about the king himself later. But if you don't know Eric, he's fucking dope. He's on Lamora Card's podcast. He's really, really smart, and he knows what he's talking about. I hope you guys learned something like I do. So let's get into it, Eric. So what's kind of your Magic background? Like, how'd you get into Magic? I heard you're a really good 60 card player.
Yeah, formerly good 60 card, formerly decently 60 card player.
Yeah.
Long story short, somebody at school had some Magic cards. They were pretty sweet. I checked them out. It's like 1998, and I already knew what Magic was. I knew it was a card game. I knew it was playable, collectible, all these types of things. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of fell in love with the artwork, and we talked about it before. It was like one of the derpiest cards ever. It was like Coilton, Viper, Python, Anaconda. I'm like, these cards are sweet, because I was thinking it was based on animals. There was spectral bears, all these cards that are based on like actual like animals, which was pretty neat. And little did I know when I got competitively into Magic, I was going to have like an affinity for dragons. Because, who doesn't like dragons? Let's be real.
Amen, brother. That was my first deck as Dragon.
Yeah, so I got into competitive Magic. A guy who at my local shop taught me how to play, like actually playing for events. Mm-hmm. I had to learn, and if you've ever met me or played me before in a tournament, my deck is my CDH deck is foil Japanese, whatever can be Japanese is, and. So cool. That's actually what I learned on. I learned with Japanese cards. I was playing with
Japanese cards.
Pitcher association. So it was just like kind of like how we were talking a little bit earlier. It's like I don't know the name of that card. I know exactly what it does though. I know the mana cost, everything, but I just learned, and I played mono red Ponza to start with. It was like a mono red Ponza, which is like for most people. That's like a mid-range tempo list with like land destruction. It ran Lightning Dragon, which is like red 2, 4/4 flyer, fire breathe with echo, and Masticore, which is a classic Magic card. Everybody knows Masticore. So I came in with the Urza's Saga, or with the Urza's block. So probably one of the most powerful blocks ever printed. So it was a great way to start my journey into Magic.
Urza's block. So were you into like Dragonstorm when that was popular?
No, I wasn't. I actually, because I was playing with a Bogarden Hellkite deck, but I was not playing Dragonstorm, because Dragonstorm was a very secret deck until the Pro Tour, because that's when the Pro Tour came, and that's when like Nassif and Pat Chapin played that deck, because that's a classic like World's Finals is watching Chapin and Nassif play with the Dragonstorm deck.
Cool, yeah, I did an interview with him. He's really cool. So, kind of, how'd you get into like Commander and then CDH if you were into 60 card like that? Did you stop playing and then pick up Commander, or?
Yeah, so I really enjoy gaming as like it's like kind of my outlet to life, right? Like some people, it is their life. For me, it's an outlet of life.
Me too.
Nothing was better than, this is before I was married and everything, and I was single or dating somebody, is rolling up on a Friday night, 40 people, standard Friday night tournaments, which was just awesome.
That's just the peak.
Yeah. I mean, like playing Magic I was around different people. It influenced like what I liked, my music, all these types of things. And Magic taught me so much about myself. And that's something that I feel like I owe the game. That's why I'm so dedicated to a particular deck or an archetype and try to give back to the community as much as possible, because Magic's given me so much. It even pushed me in the direction of owning some of the businesses that I've owned or currently do. So, yeah.
Okay. Like
well, without deviating too far, typical gamers, and I hate to generalize everybody because there's so much nuance when you talk about these types of conversations, but I always wanted to be a personal trainer. And I also wanted to share that knowledge and that information with my peers because, you know, I could see it whenever people start coming up to the shops and those types of things, and they typically get a little unhealthy, and then they choose and make like poor choices um in their food and drink options. I mean, if you look at a typical game store, no offense to them,
Sodas,
sodas, candy
Debbie
bars,
cakes.
chips,
Yeah.
those types of things.
Yeah.
And so, I really wanted to figure out like an option. And the problem was is that the typical fitness industry, which you see on Instagram, is really a deterrent for most people who play Magic, particularly
Okay.
because it's kind of like I don't say a bully, but people think of people who work out as kind of gym bros or meatheads or those types of things.
All right.
And so I wanted to be able to basically process and break that information down for people to give them the opportunity to understand it and understand that it's not about inherently getting big, jack, tan, all this other stuff. It's about having a healthy, long-lasting life. And that's the most important thing is longevity. So
Feeling good, right?
right, because typically, if you feel good mentally, physically, you perform better in tournaments. And actually, that's really where I saw a lot of my tournament play increase is whenever I got probably the leanest I was and I was the most active and I worked out and my brain just felt impenetrable. I just felt like that's when I produced some of the best tournament results I've ever had.
Okay, yeah.
And
you don't
just
forget
stay on.
triggers and you're on the board stage.
Oh man,
Yeah, you're on
it's oh I will not ever play a tournament without electrolytes. Like, and I'm not talking about your Propel waters. I'm like talking about like Elementy. Shout out to that brand. It's the best electrolyte brand on the market. Best tasting too. Hashtag sponsored. But
I'm
no,
gonna
they're
give you some.
fantastic.
I think that's
It's
the secret
good.
that I'm missing.
It's good. Just order the sample pack. I'll give you a referral code. It's really good stuff. And I've given it to like lots of the CDH players and stuff when at tournaments. They're like, I got a headache, and it's like 100% you drank either too much coffee, a Red Bull, and you're not getting actual fluids in your body. So,
yeah.
but yeah, so basically just processing the information and breaking it down so anyone can understand. So you don't have to be like a geek like me and understand like biomechanics and kinesiology, because that's a lot of my background for over the last decade, 15 plus year, about 15ish years. That's kind of my field of expertise. What I focused on was nutrition, skeletal structure, muscular structure building, and also now understanding how it affects us mentally with Alzheimer's and dementia. So
you don't sound like a Jun player.
It's a weird paradox, right? Like
me have big commander, me win game. Yeah.
Oh man.
That's funny. Hey guys, breaking news. Jun players are smart. Okay. That's funny. That's very interesting though. I definitely see that. And I'm good. I'm hype. I don't really drink coffee. I'm good. And then about 3 hours in, but that second, third round, I'm like, man, I'm exhausted, like mentally exhausted. So I'll check something like that out. Maybe that's what I'm missing because I'm trying to get over that hump. I haven't top 16 a big event. Yeah, I'm going to the Boil. So I'm really excited. I'm trying to get something to make me get that oomph. So that's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to tell people, and I know this is going to sound counterintuitive because people want to feel alert. The best thing you could really do is get some kind of light exercising in before the tournament. I don't care if it's taking a 15-minute walk outside, some push-ups, just anything. Utilize the facility because you're staying at a hotel. They probably have a workout equipment. Mm-hmm. I always work out whenever I'm at these events because it's like a non-negotiable for me. Don't drink coffee before the tournament because your cortisol levels are spiking anyways when you wake up in the morning. That's your flight or flight hormone.
Right.
And you need it. You have to have it. So the problem is that I don't care how long you've played Magic. When you're playing in a competitive REL or pro REL event, your heart rate elevates. Well, now your cortisol level's spiking again. So you have to maintain that. When you're drinking coffee, especially if you're going to like a Starbucks or something like that, you're acquiring all this like caffeine that you don't need at this moment. You have enough energy and cortisol already. So you don't need to get your heart rate up anymore because now it's going to change how you think. Your decision making's not as crisp. you might be a little bit more panicky or quick to act or even dull brain. So just forewarn people, especially if you like, just don't snap off and crush a Red Bull. don't do it. Have it later in the day if you need it. Not too late, but like typically later in the morning after your cortisol levels have subsided a little bit. So that's just a little free of charge advice for people.
Yeah. Well, I noticed, like, say you're hyped, you're ready, you're excited, 320 person tournament, right? So round 1 goes to a draw. All right, cool. Next round, and your stuff's still on the table. So then you have that emotion of that game, and then you have to go to the next round, and you're like, okay, I gotta go. And then you get in the next round, and then you're like, you feel like you haven't took a breath. You haven't relaxed for a second.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. That happened to me at Cowtown. I had a lot of momentum rolling into that tournament because I just came in second place at Punt City 3, the last Platinum event.
Yeah, man.
And so obviously I had a lot of people like they're hyped up because Korvold got some new tools from Modern Horizons 3. So my first round was, I don't want to say easy, but it was like I just looked at these cards. I'm like, oh, Chthonian Nightmares just broke it. You know what I mean? Like it's such a powerful card. But I got into the situation where I was in a very, very long feature match. It was after I had a very intense round 2. Round 3 was extremely long feature match, and as soon as we finished, next round's called. I hadn't even packed my stuff up yet, so I go into another round that was a grind fest kind of situation that I basically like
3 hours. Yeah, you're just like,
I just basically I just lost 2 rounds just so I could get a breather. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know,
in the bathroom. God.
And I'm one of those people that like, it might be just because I'm like polite at nature or something like that, but like I'm not going to disrupt the game to go use the bathroom unless it is a absolute emergency.
Right.
So
I'm the same way. I don't want to inconvenience anybody.
Yeah.
I got you. I hate being late to like the round. You have to hurry up. But let's get into it, man. Obviously the big elephant in the room, the bans. Dockside got banned, and you're the Korvold guy. But we'll get into that a little later. I wanna get to know the CDH player. Kind of, I want to talk about what do you like, Korvold player aside. What do you think about the bans? Do you think overall they're good for the format? Do you think they're all a mistake? And what do you think about Wizards being the RC now? What do you think that's going to do to CDH going forward?
Yeah, so I discussed this on my other podcast, but that was literally when it happened. Like we recorded that directly as it happened. So
it's been a few weeks now.
Yeah, so emotionally, like I was pretty charged up for a lot of reasons.
You could tell you were here.
Yeah. And that's one thing I'm not going to do. Like, you're going to see a lot of content creators out there that's going to put on a face, and they're going to be very predicated on looking good for the camera in terms of how they act and all stuff. I'm just, you are what you get. I'm that kind of person. If you met me in person, that's how I am. I'm not one of those people that feels like I need to preface my words or I need to make everything because the way I look at it is everyone who listens on our channel knows me. They've been with me for this journey. All 10,000 plus subscribers have.
Right.
So, I have no desire to, look perfect for people because I'm not
perfect. You're not.
I'm not and I'm not perfect. So why would I care? I would rather someone know exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
So that's more important to me, is being authentic to myself. And here's the best part. Twitter's not real. Like, social media is not real. It's really simple. You just cut it off. That's it. So if somebody wants to come attack you or leave a mean comment or call you out, it's really simple. You just hit them with the clown emoji, and then you just block them, or you just ignore them.
I just told my 12-year-old dad, he's playing a game with some game, and he's like, Dad, this guy's bullying me. He's calling me out. He's calling my name. I'm like, all right, hit the power button. You don't see him, do you? He's like, oh, well, I like the game. We'll do another game. You're so right.
Yeah.
You just
turn you just turn it off, and you just go about your actual normal life.
Yeah.
And you just
you as a person. right? The
Yeah.
death threats was crazy. Like, come on, guys, this is a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother can of worms. I can't speak to that because I didn't see it. I don't know what was said, those types of things. I don't know what the level of, like real death threats. Were they real death threats, or were they people telling people to go jump off a cliff or play in traffic?
Is that yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to speak on that because I don't have the actual information. I can only go based on what people say, and as we know, if it's on Twitter, it's probably bullshit. So, yeah, Twitter. I mean, it has its uses, but at the same time, people who are perpetually in Discord and on social media, I really hate to use this term because it's very true, but go touch grass, go get some sunlight. It really should be go get some vitamin D3 outside because that's what people need. It would really help with their outrages. But back to your question.
Anyways,
yeah, so
but it's okay.
with the bans, it was obviously a very shocking thing. Nobody was ready for it.
Nope.
Because as a CDH player specifically, we are caught in the crossfire of a ban that's supposed to have not been about CDH.
Dockside, Mana Crypt,
Jewel Lotus, Nadu.
Jewel Lotus is supposed to be a casual card.
Well, it's made for Commander. It's a card specifically made for it. Same with Dockside Extortionist.
Right.
I think people just kind of forget that. Like, you're not seeing Dockside Extortionist in Legacy or Vintage or anything like that. So it's a Commander exclusive card. So that's what it was made for.
And Nadu's the only one that made sense for casual because you can't build Nadu casual. So that's the only one I'll give them.
Yeah.
Nadu was a mistake.
Yeah, well, it's just the classic Simic 3-mana engines that Wizards perpetually keeps effing up. But I don't know how they keep doing it. Oko, Uro, Nadu, like, come on now,
Cannon, come on, you know what I'm saying? Cannon is.
Well, luckily, Cannon wasn't like busted and constructed, so that's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's probably underexplored, but. Yeah, so it was, I don't know if it was, I can't say right or wrong, right? Because there's pros and cons to the bans. So we'll go over some of the pros. The pros are it supposedly opens up the format. That's what everybody keeps saying because these past strategies were oppressed by Dockside. I don't understand how Collector Roof strategies are suppressed by Dockside. That makes zero sense. But if you want to talk about how like these more stacksy decks that aren't inherently trying to necessarily affect artifacts, but affect, like the Trinisphere, Chalice the Void style decks, like those kind of things, like Urza and how they got punished by Dockside.
Sithis.
Yeah, well, Sithis isn't a CDH deck. I hate to tell people,
right? But now it could do something. I don't know about winning the game, but now you don't have to worry about Dockside for 20.
Yeah, the thing is that people who, especially like with the stacks decks, is they don't understand. They still can't win the game. Like Dockside didn't inhibit anybody from winning the game. Like it doesn't speed up your stacks clock at all.
Right.
Like the best stacks decks are the ones that can win through their own stacks.
Like
so something
decks, right? Kind of like
I would say like loose stacks.
Okay.
Yeah, something like a Blind Obedience, decks that win like through creature combo with the Deafening Silence behind them.
Right.
Those are still, I think, those are typically Sisse, potentially, obviously, everybody thought Rocco died, and then Rocco won like a big tournament as soon as the bans happened.
Won a tournament after.
Yes, that deck still plays just plays Treasonous Ogre.
Go figure. But it's mono red though, and I was like, oh, that's dead now. It's like, I don't know, man. Kennen, Rocco, Godo.
And it's going to be the Wild West. Typically with bans in all formats is that it's a Wild West for a little bit, and CDH is one of those formats that it doesn't move like Standard, and it doesn't move like Modern or Pioneer, where there's slower leagues being ran every day. Yeah, it's slower.
Yeah,
and ultimately, yes.
Right.
Well, we also just don't have like leagues going all the time, and also a lot of these like Discord tournaments and stuff, they're based on like a particular group of people. It's not like it's a wide range of people. It's like the Pacific Northwest is Pacific Northwest players, right? So it's going to be a little bit different. It's not like the guy from Tennessee, is being able to play, is like playing in their like casual Discord tournament, even if it's got 50 people.
Right.
So it moves a little bit slower. And that's the difference. So also, it's Commander at heart. So people are attached to their decks, whether they say they are or not. You know, everyone has like their style or flavor of decks they like to play. You know, I like Storm decks. It's not just Korvold. I like all Storm decks. Like, I just enjoy that, you know, that playing. And a little bit about my, you know, Magic background is it's the kind of decks I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed like, or tempo pace, fast paced decks that like finds the exact right moment to, you know, engage for a win versus like, well, I'm going to set behind like a Torrential Gear Hulk and like 6 counter spells. It's just not the type of Magic I enjoy personally. But
control.
Yeah, pass on that. I'll pass on that.
God, I'm gonna play Magic here.
So the bans in general, I think it's yet to be seen whether I will tell you personally, I do not enjoy CDH in the current state because it feels like we took a step back. It feels like, you know, like we were out of the Stone Age. We made tools. We're feeling pretty good. And then like the great
again.
And then the Great Flood happened, and then now we just don't have these cards.
TNT's
and
the deck now. It's like it hasn't been a deck since Dockside and Underworld Breach and all that, and now it's a deck. Now it's like Blue Farm's still really good, guys.
And it's just gonna be like what deck can adapt the best to it, and which also decks got hurt the least, and obviously what new cards get printed. So if Wizards continuously keeps these cards banned, then I think that they'll print fixed versions of them.
Yeah. Because
that's what they do. And it gives them an opportunity to print new cards for people to buy.
The idea of Schmockside Schmortionist. 4 mana, make an artifact, make a treasure for each artifact someone controls. It's like, guys, come on, just bring them back.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see like a Mana Crypt that comes in a play tapped, or a Jeweled Lotus that taps for 2, that taps and sacks for 2, or something
or
like
a
that.
1 mana Jeweled Lotus. Yeah, no, I'm with you. That was, we're talking about earlier. That's kind of my thing, is you can't say it wasn't for CEDH because the timing, right? We're not going to do anything. The CDH thing happened, and then the RC happened, and all that happened, and then we get these bans, and it's 3 of the 4 cards were CDH cards. Mana Crypt is our Soul Ring, right? Dockside was like one of the best cards in the format, not casual. You didn't see Dockside in Mana Crypt really in casual. So that's what kind of like, just tell us what you're doing, tell us why you're doing it, and let's move forward.
Yeah, and honestly, well, I mean, all 4 of those cards were CDH cards. Nadu was like a top 3 deck.
Right.
So, and it wasn't just the fact that Nadu was a solo deck. It's the fact that other decks started using Nadu in their shell.
In the 99.
Like TNT towards the end of that,
Derevi.
Before that ban, Derevi, all those kind of things, very popular.
That was kind of cool.
Started, it was cool because it allowed those decks to effectively close out the game that didn't have to rely on Thoughts' Oracle combo.
Yeah.
You know, those type of things. So personally, I think I don't enjoy the bans, but I'm also speaking from a CDH player versus Commander in general. Right. And if you're telling me that it's a problem in Commander itself, then that tells me that Rule 0 doesn't work. So if
that makes sense.
Because why can't you just rule, like your play group and everything like that should be able to just Rule 0 that out. So that's my crux with the bans
and Turgrid, and we could talk about it. Hey, I don't want to play against your land destruction. Okay, cool. We're just hanging out. But CDH, there's no Rule 0. We're trying to win. Yeah,
and with the new bracket system, to me, it gives them an opportunity to put those cards back in, and they don't have to be unbanned. You just got to say these cards are legal in bracket 4. There you go.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because I just feel like when I think of casual, right, I think of like kids getting into it, people that don't have the budgets to do whatever they want, right? And I just feel like once you start changing that, and I couldn't tell you how many like EDH players I go to at my local game store, and they don't even know EDH Rec is a thing, or they don't know about this or that, or they don't know certain things. They don't know how the stack works, how priority works. And these are guys that go to FNM casual every night for the last 2 years. So then I tell them, oh no, you have to hold priority, your past priority, and they're like, what? So like when now you're trying to get them a system and tell them what cards they can or can't play, right? They're just high school, college kids trying to play Magic, right? So
Yeah. And so
we'll see how
it's good. That's going to be pretty interesting on that regard. So again, I don't like the bans mostly because like when you look, there's not another card that like Mana Crypt is. You mean there's Soul Ring, right? So you got like Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, whatever. Yeah. And obviously their philosophy on why they didn't ban Soul Ring, they ban Mana Crypt. It's bullshit.
That's money. That's Soul Ring is the money card that gets printed in every single precon. If they banned Soul Ring, that would fucking, you talk about pitchforks and torches.
Yeah.
Like, that would be crazy for the casual side.
And that specifically the bans were pretty suspicious due to the fact of them having conversations with Wizards about the bans, specifically these cards. And what did we get within that time frame of that year? We got chase cards such as Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt, which are the two premier flagship cards for each set. And Mana Crypt is in a standard set. That's what sold that set. Yeah. And then also, right. And I'm going to credit Brian Korvold on this because he talked about on his podcast. He said it was his tinfoil hat thing. It's very convenient that the Mystery Booster 2 edition that you have to buy for $230-something, your 2 collector booster packs are those 2 specific ones. So it's just to me, that's just too convenient. Whether there was any intent in that or not, it's really bad optics, and it's going to me affect consumer consumption of things. Like when you hear some of the biggest Magic players, in terms of like online presence stuff, downsizing their collection because they don't inherently feel safe. Like, for me personally, like people are like, and I got this comment a lot. You deserve to have your expensive cards like banned, those type of things. And if you have to have those cards, then you're not a real Magic player. And that's just the dumbest thing I've heard. Like, and I can't go through each troll and tell them how ignorant that sounds. First off, nobody deserves to have their cards banned. No one's a good or bad person based on what cards they own. That's so stupid to think about that. Like, it makes no sense. But for me personally, like I own 4 Jeweled Lotuses. I have a foil one, and it was the one I opened it on my birthday when I turned 35. When my wife and I, at the time she's my fiance, we bought the house. We moved in and then had a birthday party. My best friends bought me a box of Commander Legends, and I pulled a foil Jeweled Lotus out of it. Cool. So it means a lot to me specifically, and it happens to be an expensive card. But, I picked up Jeweled Lotuses for other Commander decks. I happen to have a foil Japanese full art Jeweled Lotus. Wow. I have 6 Dockside Extortionists. I have 2 foil etch ones. One's Japanese foil. I have the OG Docksides. I have the new art, both version Docksides. So I have like 6 of those. Mana Crypts. I have 4. 2 foils, 2 regulars, 1 Japanese borderless foil. That's a really hard hit, like for me specifically, because those cards, while I'm not in the market to fluctuate or anything like that, and you get a lot of people that also say, well, cards aren't worth anything until you sell them. I don't think people understand how TCGs or CCGs or any collectible item, everything has an inherent value. So that's like saying something on eBay isn't worth anything until it's sold. That makes 0 sense. That's not how things work. That's not how the stock market works. And that's not how any type of enterprise works or any good, service, tradable, anything like that works. Everything has an inherent value. Now, whether or not someone buys that, that's different. But things actually have inherent value. And the next person who goes, well, Magic's not meant to be held and all this. It's literally called a CCG, a collectible card game, or even TCG, a tradable trading card game. Yes, And if it wasn't, then why is there a reserve list?
Right.
So you can't have it both ways. So
I just feel like we'll get in the weeds though talking about this because there's
it's because it's such a convoluted it's such a convoluted conversation that it is in itself is an entire thing. But
but that's okay.
Move
on. I mean, I think you're okay. You're alive, right? So before we get into Korvold, let's talk about Dockside. I know when the bans happened, you're literally the first person I thought of because we did our pod probably a week or two before that. First person, I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh no, because I was Tevish Crom. I feel like Tevish just died too. And I was like, damn, that sucks. And I didn't touch my Tevish deck for like 3 days. I was in disbelief and I thought of you and I'm like, damn, dude, it's not just, you can't just hit a red button and say, fuck all, say however much money. I don't care how much money, say $100 million. It's just hard to hit a red button. Like, look at all the time and hours, the primers, all the times you've helped people, the podcast you did with me before about Korvold. It's just hard to hit a red button and go, yeah, fuck that, we don't care. Right? Or can we talk about it? Can it be a community thing? Can we make polls? Or, hey, guys, in 2025, this is what we're going to do. Not just red button, boom, fuck you guys, I don't care about your feelings. This just happened.
Well, you can't expect a panel of people who nobody actually voted for to have your best interest as a community at heart. Everyone wants to say they do, but they clearly didn't. Like, I mean, when you look at, like, listen, like, threats aside, when you look at the actual, like, response from the community, it's pretty negative.
Yeah.
And it's not just from, like, CDH players. It's a lot of collectible pro players. And then when you hear about that, it really kind of sullies the game, because it's one thing, like, I'm going in a 60 card format and like Modern, for example, I have the expectations and the precedent has been set over the last 5+ years that cards will be banned if a card gets problematic or too out of. So, we saw Grief, Fury, which I don't know why Fury got banned, but that's a whole nother subject. Whatever. Psychic Frog's still legal, whatever. Yeah. I mean, that killed. I mean, that was the deck that I was prepping for the Pro Tour, was a mono red Arclight Phoenix. Oh, because that deck had a really good matchup against Hogak.
Yeah.
They banned Faithless Looting, and obviously the Hogak players got banned, and we've seen it so many times. Eldrazi, you name it. So that is an expectation there. We see it in Standard. Whenever a card like Fable the Mirror Breaker gets it's ubiquitous or whatever that is.
Yeah.
That precedent has never been set in Commander.
Right. I just talked to a judge about that a little bit. And I'm just like, I just feel like we're the redheaded stepchildren. Commander is the most popular format, the most money format by far. And I feel like just say rules, right? I just talked to the judge and he said, well, you know the rules that we use, multiplayer? What's multiplayer in Magic? Two-headed giant. We have the same rules as two-headed giant. It's not even the same thing a little bit, right? So it's just like, it is hard to grasp and be like, fuck you guys, we don't care, the rulings, the this, the that. And it's like we're a real format. So do you think they're going to make CDH an actual format in the future?
So they said that they have no desire to have 2 split ban lists.
Okay.
But CDH, if they decide to do actual CDH, people always say, well, then it wouldn't be EDH. And I'm like, well, we literally have another EDH format that is 1v1 that has a different set of ban lists, and it's extremely thriving. And that's Dual Commander.
Yeah. Well, Standard, Pioneer, Legacy, they all have the same rules, just different ban lists, right?
Yeah.
So why
and they're all constructed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, like, people like, obviously this is pretty new for Wizards to process in terms of the public facing. I don't think this is new for them internally. 100% not. We know for a fact that in terms of CDH, that they have an interest, a vested interest in seeing CDH grow. They literally reached out to the largest European organizer and offered to sponsor their tournament. And politely, the European organizer declined because they still want it to be a proxy friendly environment. And they said, we're not there yet to where we can support non proxies. Okay. So that happened last year, I believe. It was that last year or early this year. So that shows you that they have it. All the Command Fest, guess what they have there? CDH events. Wizards of the Coast ran a competitive commander tournament using the Top Deck software at an event earlier this year.
I just went to the Tampa 5K.
So
SCG Con, yep.
Yeah, SCG Con. We obviously already see that Star City Games is running their own circuits. So to me, the step to get to a Wizards of the Coast supported format is a lot shorter than it previously was. And, the reason why I think, because Magic is a game of growing and evolution. No matter what parameters you put on it. You take Pauper, for example. Pauper has the hardest parameters of any format, right?
Okay.
It's commons.
Yeah.
Yet what happens? People break Pauper all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We've had multiple Pauper
turn
bannings.
Turn 4. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. You watch Bryant Cook play the Cycle Storm list and just murk people like that on like turn 3 or turn 4 or something like that. Yeah. So Magic inevitably is going to be this arms race format, no matter what format you play, because no matter what, people don't like losing. Inherently, they want to continuously get better. So they might upgrade that precon and maybe slip in a mana crypt in the precon, or those type of cards.
Yeah.
And then they progress that. That's just the natural state. So if you really think about it, I would say a large majority of when people play power 7, 8, and 9, you are literally 3 cards away from probably playing CDH. Like, truthfully.
Right.
Or you're already playing, and CDH to me is more of a mindset than it is inherently a format. Because
I agree.
If I took I promise you, take the 40K commander decks and you shuffle and you play those decks and you mulligan for Soul Ring and Talisman on turn 1, your game experience is completely different than people who just go, I got 3 lands, 3 cards, and a removal spell. Because that's a challenge to everybody. Pick up a precon, but play it as though it's like a CDH deck. Like literally, like dig for your draw spells, dig for your ramp spells, those type of things. Like the games are obviously the games are completely different. If normal EDH players mulliganed more, they would see Soul Ring more. Play in any CDH event. What do you see at the table typically? You see a turn 1 Fish or a turn 1 Remora backed by one of the powerful artifacts because people mulligan for these cards. It's a powerful tool that we have available. So
what's the best turn 1 play in casual? Soul Ring, Arcane Signet. That's an insane play in CDH. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, dork. You're cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm with you there. My mindset of casual is like, level 4, 5, 6. This is my upgraded precon. Once you start putting combos in the deck, and once you start going crazy, it's like, okay, let's just play CDH at that point, right? If we're trying to win turn 4, turn 5, let's just play CDH. But there are commanders like Chulane, Edgar Markov, Yuriko, where they're high power. They're not just CDH, but like you can't really play in mid power at all. So.
Yeah, I also have no desire to be an edgelord, and I don't have a desire to be like where I'm just like, well, is it a 6, is it 7, is it 8? I don't enjoy that. If I have to spend that much conversation, I just want to play Magic.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I like CDH is because I don't have to have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And everybody should engage with Magic how they want to. That's why there's a million formats. And I'm just talking about for me personally, so.
Right. Okay, so before we get into Korvold, I'm going to do about a 20-minute Korvold deck tech, talk about the future. I got to talk to you. Let's talk Dockside. Okay, so you not being a Korvold player and then you being a Korvold player, do you think Dockside was a problem? Because that's, out of the 4 cards, that's the biggest card. That and Mana Crypt, right? Do you think Dockside was a problem? Do you think that was a good idea to ban Dockside? And then as a Korvold player, what the fuck? Like, how are you going to recover from this and going forward? Did the format become a lot slower?
Yeah, so if I'm speaking in terms of CDH
Yeah,
versus Commander as a whole, I don't know what's happening at Commander casual tables
nothing.
because I'm not playing. I'm not playing those.
Nothing's happening.
That's what Rule Zero is supposed to be for, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
that's what those conversations are supposed to be for.
Yeah. Casual
Um,
players are like, oh, there's a banning. Okay, continue doing what we're doing. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and when you look at like, for example, Dockside, that might be a card that's in just someone's casual Goblins deck. That's like, oh, my Goblins deck can actually play at a decent power level now because I have Dockside Extortionist, and I might have like a convoluted combo in there with it or something like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to CDH, the one thing that Dockside did a lot of things.
Mm.
It was the ultimate catch up card. Like if you're in
tutor target.
yeah, like when
here. Yeah.
yeah, and two, whenever you look at like how a lot of these decks were built, a lot of these decks were built around like the fact that Dockside was a part of their deck because it's not just about the Dockside's upside, but it's a bridge card, and there's not a lot of cards that are quite like what Dockside does that provides a resource, a body, and
out of nowhere. Yeah.
A certain amount of treasures or those types of things.
Yeah. How many Dockside combos there are?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, there's
10?
tons. There's ton.
Yeah, I can name 10 off rip. Clones.
Yeah.
We were playing clones for Dockside.
Yeah. So when it comes to the actual format itself, or it's for CDH, it's kind of hard to say that other decks didn't do well because of Dockside. I mean, Nadu was a very good deck. Kennen is one of those premier decks as well. I can tell you that 50% of my wins in tournament play come from not even having ever seeing a Dockside.
Oh, really?
It's just like, yeah, really? Just cast ad nauseum, cast Underworld Breach. I don't need Dockside for that.
Necropotence, yeah.
Yeah, like, that's something that I thought about. I went back and looked at a lot of some of my tournament results, and some of them obviously I had Dockside, but then I've had games where Dockside like literally did nothing.
3 or 2, and you're just like,
cool. I'm one off from winning every time.
Yeah. I'll nauseum instead.
Yeah. Yeah. So, seeing Dockside go, it was pretty unfortunate because for red as a color, if you really think about it, red doesn't typically get like really powerful cards. When they do, they're obviously really, really powerful, like Breach and Dockside, right?
Yeah.
But
those
when
are
the
top cards, but then after that,
it's a pretty steady drop.
SWAT, and then you got to think about it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Like the Deflecting SWAT, it's a very good card, but it's a card that like basically whether you want to think of it as like an interaction spell or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a million of those in blue. There's a million of those in white.
Like
so when you look,
love it, but besides that, you need a reason for it.
Yeah. Right. So when you look at your power level of those cards, those are the two cards that are holding red up. In fact, that's what red finally, to me, when red kind of took over white, is when people realized that Breach ad nauseum were kind of the best two things you could be doing. Or I'm sorry, like Dockside and Underworld Breach were like the best two things you could do.
Right.
And it supplemented a lot of strategies. It allowed when you think of your Atalis, your Gruul decks, your Naya decks, those types of things, even your blue-red decks, like Niv Mizzet, like...
Yeah. Well, the last 2 years, you'd have to convince me why you're not playing red. Give me a good reason why. That's because of Dockside Breach. Well, also with Breach, like, hey, it's turn 3, I have a gamble, I win if I don't discard my Breach. Right? Hey, Dockside's just casually on 6, turn 2, my Dargo Thrasios deck just wins. Right? Like, I agree with you, but I still think, like, because you got to think 3, 4, 5 years ago, TNT was the deck, right? And then red got good, Breach, Thoracle, Dockside, all that stuff, and then it's been Blue Farm since then. I feel like it's a really big misconception of, oh, TNT's the best deck now, Kennen's the best deck now. It's like, no, red's still good, Breach is still insane, but now I think winning is going to be harder in the Swiss rounds. I think it's not just I win because I have this, I did that. Like, no, now you have to work for it.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, I don't think Rockside has to really work for it at all. I mean, if you look,
at the I've been playing Rockside lately, and I really thought it was like turn your brain off deck. And I probably have 10 to 15 games for the new meta, and it's a lot harder than I thought. Like it's easy to go here to here, right? I just cast wheel, I just cast ad nauseum, but like I just neckered for 30. This is my only way to win. Like trying to, after drawing the 30 cards, right? Trying to put in your keeping up with interaction. It's a lot harder than I thought, but I agree with you. Like Rockside
Yeah,
is good.
well, when you look at Rogsai holistically as a deck, you look at it, it has the best mana production outside of some busted Gaia's Cradle deck that has to specifically tutor for Gaia's Cradle.
Right.
It just it loses some cards. It obviously lost Dockside, it lost Crypt, but in terms of how much mana it produces, and not just Rogsai, but even Rog Thras, both those decks produce a tremendous amount of mana.
Yeah, the whole deck.
So
is mana.
yeah, the whole deck is mana. The whole that's
Mana
I mean,
tutor. Yeah.
mana tutor interaction. That's just pretty much it.
Yeah, Dream Hand is mana, deflecting spot, demonic tutor. That's the Dream Hand and Rockside.
Yeah, and so whether or not Dockside, like obviously it weakened every deck that didn't get to, that was running it.
Mm-hmm.
That's an obvious. Same with Mana Crypt. And then there's some decks that didn't even play Jeweled Lotus because obviously like Rockside didn't play Jeweled Lotus because that's not what their deck is about. But in terms of like Dockside is an ultimate catch-up mechanic. You know, it was like in seat 4, like have you looked at any of the win do you know anything about win percentages from seat 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yeah, it's about 10 to 12% different from 1 to 4.
It's pretty abysmal.
Yeah. I think Dockside was the only card that you didn't mind going last.
Yeah.
Because that sucked going last, but you had your Dockside and you were okay.
Yeah, because you have a mulligan strategy for that.
Yeah. And
it's kind of weird to talk about these bans because, again, these bans weren't made for CDH, but yet CDH was the most affected by it.
Yeah, come on.
Which is pretty interesting.
Y'all can lie to yourself all you want to.
Yeah. I dare not put myself in the minds of the people who made the decisions. So
yeah, but I mean, no matter what they did, there's obviously going to be negative feedback. Like I said, if they just banned Dockside, that would have been crazy. If they just banned Mana Crypt, that would have been nuts, right? But doing it all, I think that was all the backlash. But it's okay. Moving forward, me personally, I was pissed at first, but I'm not a Korvold player. I'm a Tevish player. But now I kind of like the puzzle of, I don't know what the fuck I'm bringing to the boil. I don't know what the meta is going to look like. It's kind of fresh in that way. But I'm with you, though. I didn't think we needed that, to be honest. I love Dockside. I love Red. I love playing Broken Things. That's why I love Mana. Mana Crypt's the only card for me personally that I miss. That's the card that I'm just like, that's why I play this fucking format. But it's okay. I moved on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the thing that like when I signed up to play CDH, I signed up to play with the Broken Things.
Yeah.
So if you don't want those cards legal, just like, all right, they're not legal in anything that's not power level 10. There you go, fixed. You don't have to do that, but they don't want to create confusion and all this other stuff. But I also wouldn't trust people who don't know game design, who didn't particularly design anything or curate a particular format.
Who are these people making these? Like what? Like it's But before we get in Korvold, one last thing. I heard on your other podcast. Isn't all this just even though it is like legit Wizards, it's on Wizards fucking website, because all the, say just not Top Deck, say this random Sky High Games, it's 2 hours away from my house, right? They don't have to do the bans, right?
No.
Like they do proxies. So if it's not a sanctioned event and you can do proxies, we don't have to do the ban. Like how come no one thought of that? Everyone just like, nope, ban, we're doing it. And it's just like Top Deck, the boil got sold out. Why weren't they like, hey guys, after the boil, we're gonna implement the ban? Since it was just you know what I'm saying? Like I just feel like, I don't know. It's just
I would love for the boil I would love for Top Deck to have made a statement and come out with that, but they had plenty of their own drama, people attacking them for
bad timing.
bad timing, those types of things. So I really feel for those people. I know all those people personally.
Yeah,
They're very good individuals
I talked to Freedom Waffle.
who,
He got a lot of shit for it, and he's such a good dude.
well, I'm specifically talking about Top Deck.
Top Deck. Okay,
Uh,
okay. I was talking
yeah,
about the RC thing when
now
him
the,
and Matt tried to do the RC thing, and they had a big
yeah,
blow up. Yeah.
and I talked about this. I disagreed with what they were trying to do with the RC. I don't think anybody should self-appoint. I get like you're trying to, you know, take a step forward because that's what the RC was saying, or those type of things. But in reality, there's so much nuance that goes into it. I appreciate the effort. I just didn't agree with it. But in terms of Top Deck, the stuff that they had to go through whether it was Twitter drama, people coming at them, threatening them. Nobody cared about that because the people who were doing the threatening are the same people who complained about the bans. So
yeah,
it's again, Twitter's not real. So for them to not have to come out because I was really looking forward to the potential of cards getting unbanned, like Fast Spawn, just to see something happen.
I'm a prime
those. Yeah, like
prime time, baby. Come on, I'm here for the broken shit.
I think that would have been a more interesting puzzle than just like, oh, we're gonna cut out the most powerful things out of this format. Good luck, figure it out. But again, they don't care about CDH. They adamantly stated they don't. Mm-hmm. And one thing I will say about Wizards that I appreciate is the fact that they are going to have a CDH person on the panel. Like, that is something that Gavin Verhey said verbatim from his mouth. Now, with that being said, it does not need to be a person who is a content creator. It needs to be somebody with a great understanding of the format and game design and the rules. So some combination of there. I know a few people that fit that are also involved in CDH. If Wizards of the Coast magically was like, you know what, Eric, we'd like to have you on there, I would not play in any tournaments because I just don't think it's a good look. Yeah, it's something that I just.
The weird part, if we're just taking good CDH players and now they're in charge of our format. Yeah, it was kind of. I feel like there's a lot of Indians and no Chiefs.
Yeah, so
we're kind of running in circles. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it needs to be somebody who has a great understanding of the game. Now, it could be
a group of somebodies. And then open to the community. Hey guys, this is what we're doing. Help us make this and let's test this. Not just we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Oh, never mind, we're not doing that. Now we're gonna do our own thing. And then like the bands, like why does Magic historically do the bands like that? Just boop, here you go, here's the bands. It's like, can we, hey, 2025, it starts here, or hey, this is what we're thinking of. What do you guys think? Like that was a rough part for me.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit different when you have like 60 card bands versus an EDH ban. Mm-hmm. Because EDH, supposedly Commander is a community ran format, but yet the community wasn't involved in the decision making process, which I think that's just an oxymoron. But
right, you get what we're on the same page. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right, we can talk about this forever. That's not what people are here for. We're over the bans. Let's talk about Korvold. At least 2 to 5 people have just asked me just on my Discord, hey, do you have a Korvold list? Is Korvold dead? I love this guy. Korvold's broken. I'm like, I don't know. Let me talk to the Korvold guy. Let's talk about it. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go over the deck. Do you think, Eric, is Korvold dead or is he back?
Well, I don't think he's back at all. And that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt a lot of people's like heart.
Okay.
For full context, obviously, like if you know who I am or if you don't, I play Korvold exclusively at CDH events. The reason why I do this is because it's my favorite way, obviously pre-ban, to engage with CDH. I enjoy it. Mm-hmm. When I'm not playing in a tournament, I'm at home with my friends, whatever. I'm playing Rogsai, Blue Farm, Najila, Atraxa, like any of the top 20 decks are all on the menu for me to play. Yeah. Fortunately, I'm able to build any of these decks. So, it's fun to play. A deck that I very much enjoy post-ban is actually Thras Vile. But specifically just because I like the color combination and what the deck can do, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But that's how I choose to go into the, to play in these tournaments. Also, the reason why I chose to play Korvold, outside of it being my favorite commander, is that I thought its tournament representation was really bad. It was like really bad. Like Korvold was not performing in tournaments. It wasn't. There's like maybe one Korvold deck like back in the day, maybe like 2021, that like topped an event, and it was played by a really, really good player, Vasher. So, but since then, Corvold just doesn't really top. It was always considered a boogeyman at tables, but in terms of tournament play, it was extremely disrespected. Well, obviously, I really started working on the deck like heavily with strict. I've been playing it since it's come out, but when I came about it and got put on the database and all this other stuff was when Strixhaven came out. And I started playing things like Chain of Smog and actual win conditions outside of Finale and Praetor's Grasp. Right. So that's kind of a little backstory on that. It took a while for Korvold to start gaining traction in tournaments. You had to make people believe in it to pick it up. And like people will play it, they'll whoop up on their locals or those types of things because how powerful it is. But in terms of tournaments, it's Achilles' heels. It's not blue or white because it doesn't have those protection elements. So, I had to build and curate lists that was able to play in these very hostile Rhystic Study metas, and, Dockside was a massive part of that. Because Dockside was the ultimate catch-up engine, but so is Jewel Lotus and Mana Crit because it allowed the deck to play a little bit faster than a 5-mana commander normally would be. That's no longer available to us. So if Korvold was already hard enough, it was like a top 15 deck, about a 24-25% win percentage overall. And unfortunately, it is it gets played by a lot of people casually.
Right.
So these people enter the tournaments. They're not playing, even a CDH list, and they're just playing like their high-powered aristocrats list or something like that, and they just get rolled in these tournaments. So it really hurts like the actual like win percentage of the deck. I think I have like close to like a 33, 34 win percentage all time with it in terms of tournament play, and that's with and that's with some unstellar results. The first year I really started playing it in events. But whether it's dead or gone, it's really hard to say. My heart says it's dead because if it was already hard enough to play, what did it get? Like if 3 of the best cards in the deck got gutted, then how do you make up for that difference? Because you have to think about Korvold as a commander. Korvold is a resource-hungry commander. So it needs those resources, and that's exactly what Dockside was.
Well, also
Dockside was those resources.
Was a big hit too, right?
Sure, absolutely. And that definitely affects like post-Nas quite a bit. And like instant speed and step win attempts off of a Necro and those types of things. So, for me, it's like, okay, the deck's dead. Like basically. So now how do I make it to where it's at least manageable, where you can win some games with it with your friends or a Discord or a league to where it's not like just atrocious? Because I've seen some really not very good commanders win events or top events. So Jund itself as a color pie is a pretty powerful color pie.
Correct.
It just doesn't have the protection to inherently back it up like a Force of Will. So what do you have to do? You have to lean into what you have. So that's where we're going to take a look at where the deck is, at least right now.
So what are the biggest changes? So instead of Dockside, you're leaning on the creature combos, Food Chain, Squee, Orange Soul Trader lines.
Yeah, so
Goblin Recruiter, that's spicy.
It wasn't just when Dockside got banned. With Dockside getting banned, it basically effectively banned several cards in the deck.
Yeah.
The
your reanimation spells. Yeah.
Yeah, your reanimation spells. Yeah. Losing Ruthless Technomancer was pretty big because that card ostensibly was like the second most powerful creature in the deck outside of Dockside Extortionist. Because a lot of games would just come down to a big Korvold, cast the Technomancer, eat the Korvold, make X treasures, reanimate the Korvold,
Yeah.
trigger on the stack, reanimate the Dockside, draw 4 cards, then eat the Dockside off the Korvold ETB trigger, then reanimate Dockside. You just won. You just drew 20 cards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing that does that. There's nothing even remotely close to that. So
Right.
what we had to do is like, okay, what's our next best options? And full context, I have built KCI Korvold. I've built Lands Korvold. I've
KCI.
built, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a sacrifice-based strategy.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And when you're sacking like Chromatic Stars, making 2 mana, drawing 2 cards, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, let's see, lands that's pure Turbo Korvold does not work anymore because you don't have the middle card to get you to where you need to be.
Right.
You have to have a collection of cards to do that now. So you have to lean more back into different types of cards that allow you to do that.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
Is it more mid-range now? It's not just Turbo Ad Nauseam, but you have Ad Nauseam in the deck. You have Bull Citadel now. Like, how's the deck play? Have you played a lot of the new meta with Korvold, or are you just still messing around with the deck list?
I've played quite a bit, and every time I win, I'm just like, this deck sucks. Even when I'm like winning. I mean, like, I had a game the other,
You're just
like,
used to it being here. Now you're back to being human.
yeah. And that's not just trying to say that like I don't enjoy the trying to figure out and the puzzle and the challenge. I playing Jun, it's already a challenge. Like I already signed up for that. I don't need something else making it more difficult for me. And then still going, oh wow, I don't have a card to punish Rhystic and Mystic. That's great. I love this. We'll just let the blue players keep drawing. But typically what happens is it did open up some strengths that were probably a lot less prominent with Dockside Extortionist.
Okay.
And that's the Warren Soul Trader Chatterfang combo.
Ooh, let's talk about it. What is that? Let's see.
So Warren Soul Trader is a 3-mana 3/3 goblin.
Yep.
By the way, modern all-star staple right now. This is literally a modern deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Soul Trader combo decks. And it says, pay 1 life, sacrifice a creature, make a treasure.
Yep.
Treasures are obviously very good for Korvold.
Mm-hmm.
Chatterfang says, whenever a token enters the battlefield under your control, you make that token plus 1 squirrel. Or you actually make equal to the number of tokens that come into play. So if 2 tokens come into play, you'd make 2 squirrels. So basically, you just need one thing to sacrifice, and you go infinite.
Well,
not infinite, but infinite life. It can go infinite,
well,
but
how do you gain life though?
Zulaport Cutthroat.
Oh, I was just looking at the 2, but
Yeah.
this can still get you what 30 treasures, right?
Yeah, so if I'm let's say 30, 35 life, 30 life, whatever, if I make 20 treasures, have 10 life left, I also get to draw 20 more cards. So it's like think of it like as
you're winning.
Yeah.
The game.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the fact that also it doesn't need Korvold on the battlefield. So you can start your loop, pay 5 life, make 5 treasures, play Korvold, and then continue on. Make 15 to 20 more treasures, draw 15 to 20 more cards. Then you can sack those treasures again. So it's really looking to draw anywhere from 40 to 60 cards with this combo. I mean, it's to me the cleanest 1-2 punch in the game, like in terms of this deck.
Oh, is that why Goblin Recruiter's in now? Because that is a Goblin? Zombie, Goblin Wizard, Yeah,
so when you set up your, like, let's say your lines where with the Goblin Recruiters, and before I get into the Goblin Recruiter, Warren Soul Trader is a good magic card on its own. Chatterfang is a removal spell on a stick.
Yeah, but why weren't you on these before the ban, though? Because Warren was a good card in Korvold, but you weren't on it.
I played Warren Soul Trader actually at Cowtown when I went 3-3-1.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I was just thinking of the last deck we did, you weren't on it. So.
Yeah, well, the last deck that I played was for a specific meta. It was for the Rogsai meta, and Warren Soul Trader. And when Rogsai is winning on turn 1 or presenting turn 1, turn 2 wins, 3-mana 3/3s aren't really where I want to be. So
yeah, but now it's okay.
It's a little bit different because now you're forced to play with what is available.
Yeah, I still think it's really good.
But yeah,
okay.
But Chatterfang was starting to pick up play right before the ban because if you imagine you just play like a Chatterfang out, right? You're like, let's say you play like a turn 2 Chatterfang and then You play a Dockside right after Chatterfang the next turn. You're going to make, like, say, 5 to 6 treasures. You're going to make 5 to 6 squirrels. Now, when your Korvold comes down and uses your treasures, you can now use your squirrels to kill something and also draw 5, 6 cards. That's why,
I
yeah.
see now. Okay, so pay a black. So sacrifice a treasure, draw a card, float a black. Do the black, sacrifice 4 squirrels, draw 4 cards, kill something.
Yes.
Holy shit. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was actually starting to really catch on.
Yeah.
That's actually where my list post invitational was coming in, just because these cards are decent on their own. You know,
they're not just deck cards. Okay.
No, they're not just like.
They don't need the other piece. They're decent.
Right.
Until you slam the big monster. Okay.
That's right.
All right, cool. Because when I was, be honest with you, before I talked to you, I was looking at this list and I didn't see Chatterfang, but I was just like, Goblin Recruiter? What? Warren Soul Trader? Okay, I see. Vexing Switcher. But then now it's all starting to make sense.
Yeah. So I'll just walk you through like a simple recruiter line.
Okay.
We'll say in the context that Korvold's out, and you get to really see like why it's in there.
Mm-hmm.
The Goblin Recruiter, the reason why it's probably the most tutor thing that I get in the deck creature wise,
really,
because it provides a multitude of cards. There's no really other card that does that in the list specifically, and it's the only thing that gets you like a lot of materials. So if you have, let's say, a Warren Soul Trader out and you're able to play a Goblin Recruiter, so you're going to play your Recruiter. So I'm going to put all my goblins on top of my deck. You know, I'm going to put Ignoble Hierarch, Squee, yeah. Impulsive Pilferer, Vexing Shusher. Yes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Modern deck.
Shusher's a goblin?
Yes.
What the fuck?
So now you get to tutor for your protection.
Yeah.
As well as your combo piece and the Squee.
Holy shit.
And then like Skirt Prospector, just because it's going to be a sackable goblin. And then you're going to go, all right, awesome. I'm going to now sack my Imperial Recruiter to the Warren Soul Trader, make a treasure, draw a card. I'm going to draw the Impulsive Pilferer. Now I'm going to play the Pilfer off the treasure, so draw another card. So now I'm going to sack the Impulsive Pilferer to the Soul Trader, draw a card, make 2 treasures, one off the Soul Trader, one off the Pilfer ability. Now I'm going to sack my treasures and pay 2 additional mana, and I'm going to activate Impulsive Pilfer out of my graveyard and make 3 goblins. Now I'm going to sack those 3 goblins each to the Warren Soul Trader. It's going to be a draw 3, make 6 treasures. So that chain is actually a +6 mana, draw 12, which is effectively a Dockside plus a loop.
We got there.
Right. And it's all based on this. And you can control how you do that.
I like that.
Let's say, yeah, also the Impulsive Pilfer is not a cast out of the graveyard. It's an ability. So you can't counter it unless it's like a stifle effect.
Yeah. For each copy that gain haste, sacrifice the next end step. Okay. But you can only do this once, right?
Sadly, so.
Yeah, this card gets exiled. Okay, I was going to say, that's some loops. No, you exile.
Yeah, that would be a loop.
And then you, make.
Yeah, that would definitely be a loop. I would definitely be on that if that was. Then I'll be like, we're good. Then we're good, you know. And then having the Imperial Recruiter allows you to basically search up either like a combo piece.
You mean Goblin
like
Recruiter?
a soul.
You're not on
yeah, for Goblin Recruiter, it allows you to search up like a combo piece like Squee, or a protection piece like Vexing Shusher.
I didn't think of it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Huh. And then when you go down to the deck list, you see we have Bolus of Citadel. Well, Goblin Recruiter plus Bolus of Citadel is pretty broken, so you're gonna probably win that if you resolve an Imperial Recruiter and it doesn't get oppoed, you have a Bolus of Citadel out, you're winning that.
Oh yeah, because
you just get.
Yeah, a lot of decks are like, Bowl Citadel, I don't know. If you get a Bowl Citadel and somehow you get Goblin Recruiter, game's over. Because then you just do what you just said, the line.
Yeah, and spend 0 mana on it. So that's where the benefit comes in
30
with
life
that.
When you game Bowl Citadel. Okay, and anything extra is just extra. Okay. I like that. So is Food Chain, obviously Food Chain's better now in the thing, because I know you didn't like it before in Korvold. Is it just, it's just here now because it's a combo, or do you actually like this?
Well, I think it's it's no, I do not like food chain. I've
It's a
never liked.
necessity, is what you're.
Yeah, I've never really liked food chain.
Okay.
I've always been able to figure out my win lines. Typically, a lot of decks that I play Korvold wise was I don't like a lot of win conditions. At least this year, I was able to I only ran Mayhem Devil and Praetor's Grasp at Punt City 3, and I won plenty of games.
Yeah.
I won a lot of games that day, and people feel like they have to have a lot of win conditions. But when your deck's gutted and you don't have the glue for the deck, you have to find different ways to make the deck function. And we know food chain is a thing. We know it works. So it's not just the fact that food chain's the next best thing. Food chain layers into the deck quite well with its current configuration.
Yeah.
So we obviously talked about the squee interaction with the Goblin Recruiter being able to tutor for it. That's really nice, right? But food chain combo also gets to utilize Gazul Cutthroat as a win con as well. So if you notice, the deck does not play Mayhem Devil. The reason why we don't, and you could totally slot Mayhem Devil in here, if you wanted to just slot it in because you feel like you need an additional way to win. Yeah. I would probably rather just have at this point, Marionette Apprentice or even Blood Artist, just because you want to be able to win with your Chatterfang combo post Nas or post Necro.
Yeah.
Mayhem Devil does not allow you to do that because you've already paid too much life. While Zulaport Cutthroat, as long as you're not at 1, you're good to go. So
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, you're good to go in that regard. So that's why it's in there. So Zulaport Cutthroat is the card that is the win con for both combos. So that's why it's in there. It serves 2 purposes. And it just happens to gain you a little incidental life in the meantime, which is kind of nice. Nothing great, but
right. Well, I'm just confused with food chain. Food chain exile squee, right? That's not
correct.
Dying, is it? That's not a die trigger.
So you exile squee. So you make your 4 mana.
Yeah.
You make infinite creature mana, which you present a loop with your food chain combo, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go through this loop. I'm going to make 1 billion red mana. All right. I'm going to recast squee, making green and black. All right. So I now have 500 million of each color. Okay. Now I'm going to cast Korvold if Korvold's not already out. Korvold's going to ETB, eat the squee, draw a card, recast squee, exile Korvold, recast Korvold.
Okay.
You have infinite creature mana. So you get to the point to where if you want to put most of your deck in your hand, you totally can. And at that point, you just you'll play your Zulaport Cutthroat, you'll play your Zulaport Cutthroat, and then you'll just go, all right, I'm going to play by Korvold. I'm going to put the ETB trigger on the stack, exile it to food chain. It will ETB. Now the trigger will resolve. You'll eat the squee. You'll trigger the Zulaport Cutthroat, but you don't draw because the Korvold's no longer on the battlefield. So that's how you get around decking yourself out.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute. We're not on Thoracle. Okay. You really don't think this deck has legs?
I mean, it should.
You take this to a tournament, dude. This deck is, I don't know, man.
So, on top of food chain, if you notice, we've got more creatures in the deck than we typically previously have had, right?
Right.
Because you don't have a lot as many. You're not having to play all these reanimation spells specifically for Dockside, so that opens up a lot of slots. Mm-hmm. So if we have more creatures. Right. We go down to the artifact section. We have a pretty good amount of artifacts. So you see Bolsa's Citadel, which we're utilizing Bolsa's Citadel because we're a shifting woodlands deck. So MH3 gave us some pretty powerful cards to kind of play around with.
Oh, Gathoni Nightmare. Rest in peace.
Yeah. RIP for now.
For now.
It's still a fine card. It's still basically 2 mana reanimate anything out of my deck, which is pretty decent. But, I'm not really necessarily playing a lot of those cards inherently. Reanimate, I think, is just kind of the best catch-all right now just because it can target any player's graveyard.
I was going to ask you about that. We're still on Reanimate.
Well, we still have the power of Entomb. So, yeah. So Entomb pulls the deck together really nicely because Entomb plays with shifting woodlands. It also helps cut on your woodlands as well with Delirium. So I've put a Bolsa Citadel in my graveyard. I'm going to have instant artifact. I'll probably have a land and a creature. So my Delirium's cut on pretty nicely. Um, so this deck also allows you to play Food Chain or Bowls to Citadel without having to cast them. If they're in your graveyard, you just activate the Shifting Woodlands and combo.
Oh, so good. Just shifting
Yeah.
woodlands and Entomb is a win con.
Yes. In fact, Crop Rotation, Entomb are must counters in this deck. So
Really?
that's again,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
because the Crop Rotation gets the Shifting Woodlands.
Shifting woodland, and then Entomb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're cooking, man. You're cooking, dude. Do you plan on going to the Boil or any tournaments, or are you just still chilling?
I'm currently scheduled to go to the Boil.
Are you?
So
Come
yeah.
on, you gotta bring them. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm just a fan. I'm a fan first, and I am a guy just talking to you about Magic.
Oh, for sure. No, and
This is exciting,
you know,
dude. Don't you just want to show the world, hey, Korvold isn't dead. Fuck you, right? Like, because you are a skillful player, right? I feel like you could do work. Yeah, I agree with you. It's gonna be harder, right? Like the biggest thing that came out to me the last podcast we did, you're like, I know I'm at a disadvantage bringing this deck, but you were still fucking top 16 almost 40% of the time, right?
hmm
Would this be a deck you would take if you are going to the Boil, or are you cooking something else?
um, I'd like to just see how Corvold is in that type of environment. Just in general with that metagame in that Atlanta area. Um,
Yeah, but there's not really any cheat codes. We don't know what the meta's like.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's pretty obvious when you know what kind of players are coming there.
I think
You know,
farm. Yeah.
oh, it's just when you look at the players who are registered for the event, you can pretty much guess what they're playing.
Okay.
Like I know there's still going to be all the Rogside pilots. That's not changing. Nobody goes, you know what? I'm putting Rogside down. No, they're going to still be playing Rogside.
Okay, yeah. I
You
picked
know,
Roxai up because Tevish Crom died, in my opinion. So I'm taking Roxai too. So maybe it is a faster meta going there. So okay.
if it's sad that Tevish Crom and I know the Doom of Fools thing.
My
But I will say if you do like that style of deck, I would suggest Ikra Crom, just because Ikra Crom gets access to Green Dorks.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just love Tevish so much.
Oh yeah.
That was my card.
But
I thought
when we get back to the deck, we looked at like we've had to change some things. So we're not this turbo. We're still a turbo deck. Like I mean, this deck can still win on turn 2. Like I don't it still just has a turn. It has 2 different turn 2 combos. Like it still has that. It's obviously not going to be as fast as consistent because the lack of some of the 2 fast mana cards, but it still has that ability. Turn 3, turn 4 are typically where you're going to still see it, but because everybody else is reacting in such a way that they're slowing down, not everybody, but a lot of players, they're slowing down. So I think it gives an opportunity for breathing room for draw engines in this style of deck to come back because you typically, if you look, Sylvan Library was largely cut from all turbo decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
By and large, because it's the 8 life and you don't want to compete with ad nauseum.
Mm-hmm.
But if people are going to set on their counter spells more because the games aren't as fast, you need to basically overload the amount of draw engines that you have. So you have the ability. Yeah. Yeah, One Ring, just a great card if you get to play it on turn 2. Obviously, it's pretty busted on turn 1. The card that Sylvan Library could easily also be like was it Ripples of the Unearth, Ripples the Undeath, that card from MH3. It's like the black Sylvan Library. I mean, I played it at Cowtown.
I know what you're talking about. It's a Timna card, I think.
It's during your pre-combat
life, sack a creature, draw a card or something.
No, during your pre-combat, you basically mill 3 cards, and then you may pay a colorless to put one of those in your hand. If you do, lose 3 life.
I remember that. Yeah, I had in my Timna Sakashima deck.
Yeah, so that right there is pretty decent. It actually might be the better card over Sylvan Library because it also allows you to have a Necropotence out and you don't skip your draw step. So that's food for thought there.
And it's a creature, right?
No, it's an enchantment. It's a black and a colorless enchantment.
It's an enchantment. Okay, I thought it was a creature. Okay.
Yeah. So that might be for the listeners. You might probably see me put ripples in that slot
Okay.
because it doesn't compete. It doesn't get affected by necropotence. Same with Black Market Connections, a card that
Let's talk about it. Yeah, you got to sell me.
yeah. Well, Korvold's all about material, right? So you need materials. And if you look how Korvold's design, it's obviously its ability is really inherently broken with treasures, right? So when even if you just pay the 3 life, you're going to get to draw an additional card and a treasure. Well, in Korvold, that's basically drawing another card. So you get to basically for 3 life, draw 2 cards, make a mana.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And then you have the 3/2. Now the 3/2 seems less impressive, but again, we're a sacrifice deck. It cuts on all of our sacrifice effects, whether it's a diabolic intent, culling ritual. It also can sack to Scarp Prospector or Warren Soul Trader because it's a changeling and it has all creature types.
Okay, I see you cooking. Okay.
It's also one of the cards that allows you to basically choose all 3 modes. And then when you play like a turn 3 Korvold, you can sack an irrelevant card and not have to actually give up a resource like a land or a really good artifact or something like that.
Right. And
so
you can do it. It's not what you want to do, but it is an option.
Yeah, I mean, the card's actually probably should have been probably seen play prior. It's a pretty powerful card. Like,
Really?
yeah, I mean, if you said, hey, I invested 3 mana into a card and I drew 4 cards, made 2 additional mana, would you play that card? I'd play any card that said draw 4, make 2 mana.
Okay.
You know?
It's just 3 mana in a ad nauseam, deck.
So it's not an ad nauseum deck. That's
is why it's not played. Yeah, this deck is different. This is fucking spicy.
Yeah, you got to understand the ad nauseum is only resolving a small percentage of the time. So if my ad nauseum resolves, that means that these other cards are probably irrelevant, right? Like we were already playing Necropotence. Every ad nauseum deck plays. If you look at Rogsai's tribal 3 mana because they're playing like 4 wheels, Necro Dominance, Necropotence, Burgi, those type of thing.
Where I go for ad nauseam because it's easier.
Yes.
So Necropotence, Imperial Seal, I win.
Yeah. So with this, you have to think about like ad nauseum is just another tool in your tool belt. It allows you to play at the end of turn. It allows you to basically be like an in-step thought seize on an opponent, which is pretty good. So that again allows you to set up your turn because if the games are going a turn or a turn and a half slower, it gives you a little bit more setup time, which allows your draw engines to be a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. Before I let you go, I know it's been a little bit. Before I let you go, we got to go through some mulligans. And what's the deck looking to do now? Because you don't have the dockside plan anymore. What's the ideal mulligan?
I mean, your ideal mulligan's going to be probably a turn 1 dork almost every time. Really? Outside of like potentially just getting like a soul ring, fast mana, so those type of things.
Yeah.
So you're wanting to see like either a draw engine or something that produces materials early on. So like a plan.
Okay, I got you. It's probably the same Soaring Arcane Signet Dork. It's really good in this deck.
Yeah, so like this hand here, this is like probably 6, just
going second.
So we're looking at this. We're probably going to bend the tainted. We're going to bend that, and then depending on what seat we're on, I'll probably always lead with Ragavan.
We're on second. Yep.
Yeah. So we get to draw a card for the turn.
So draw Lightning Bolt.
Great. So,
yeah.
And based on what you're showing and what you're representing, I have access to this. So I'm actually going to crack, and I'm going to go get a Taiga to cast the Ragavan. So we're going to get a Taiga to cast Ragavan.
Okay.
And then the turn 2, we can use the Taiga to tap to cast Ignoble Hierarch. And now we have the fetch land for the option of either tutoring with Vampiric Tutor or fetching for Underground Mortuary.
Okay, I see.
Which again allows us an additional card to dig.
Okay, got another land. Yeah, okay. Yeah,
I mean, I was
thinking turn 1 Vamp Tutor, but yeah, I guess this sets you up. Yeah.
I don't think I ever turn 1 Vamp Tutor outside of it's my only play.
Okay, I got you. I like that. I don't know, man. I think this deck's still good. All right, we're going last. We got a bunch of lands, Bolus Breach.
Trophy. Oh, that's a mulligan.
Yeah, first 7. Yeah. Shifting Woodland, Mandible, Dork, two.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a mulligan because even if your land came into play
Land.
untapped,
Yeah.
you don't have a plan.
Well, you could pedal. Isn't that turn two Korvold?
I mean,
Right.
with all respect, I don't think turn two Corvold is like what the deck's ever really done
We have a
outside
swamp.
of a heavy,
Okay. Yeah.
outside of an early dockside. Corvold's a really intense resource deck,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Corvold's typically not plan one outside of dockside extortionist. So
I got you. This is a 6. I hate Mox Opal now. Ugh. All right. So we got a 5. Turn 1 Pyroblast.
yeah, this is a mulligan. We're mulligan to 5.
5 Mullen to 5. Okay.
Wow, that Orcish Lumberjack is just you just keep drawing it. That's pretty amazing.
I got a Delta.
Yeah.
It's a pitch.
I don't put a lot of stock in Moxville Simulator.
I know. It's just good to have an idea, though.
Yeah.
It's just good to look. I just like playing with it. Like before I sleep up a deck, I just like having a feel for it. And I like having the best player talk about the deck a little bit.
Yeah, well, I can already tell you that this here has been like very anomaly. Like I've played 26 lands in every event I've played in, and it's never been. It's actually almost too many a lot of the times.
Yeah,
so
I got you. Yeah, I would, dude. I would do this for like an hour on Oxeye, and then I play a game, and I'm like, I have 6 fucking lands on turn 2. I have 23 lands on my deck. What is happening? Yeah, I got.
Yeah, Rockside magically always hits its land drops with 23 lands. I don't understand how that works, but it does.
That's the craziest thing. That's about all the time we got today. It's about an hour and a half. I appreciate your time, man. I have more faith in you and the deck than I think you do, and then who knows? You might bring it. You might. I think it stopped recording. That's okay. I have OBS. I think, who knows? I'd love to see you. I can't wait to meet you at the Boil. You still got to sign my dockside. I don't care what anybody says.
You never know.
Yeah, but is there anything you wanted to plug or anything? Or?
No, nothing I don't want to plug, but I just want to say for everybody who's out there who's like, trust me, my inbox has been filled up on a daily basis. I get multiple questions on like, where's Korvold at? Where do we go from here? Is this really good? All this. My best suggestion to everybody is sleeve up cards and test it yourself. Don't look at me as the end all to be all source because I'm just one person that took years to get Korvold to where it was. Right. And now it's all been undone. And now I have to redo this again. Right. So I don't.
It's not just one guy. Yeah. Okay.
And there's a lot less draw to the deck now without dockside. So it's not like, anybody who wants to pick it up, they're like, all right, I can play this deck because dockside allows me to do the most busted thing in Magic, and that's make mana draw cards for no effort. Yeah, so that's why Korvold is really powerful. So you have to look at different ways to do it. And there's like all sorts of other cards that are still unexplored. I told you I had like a land strategy. You can do a loop with like Aftermath Analyst, Shifting Woodlands, and Squandered Resources. You just loop. You just loop and draw your deck. Yeah. So those are all cards that I've like tested around. I think Squander Resources, again, it's another one of those cards. So for everyone out there with Korvold, just sleeve it up, test it out, figure it out. I would love for somebody else to figure it out if there's even a way to figure it out, because
there's a group of like 10 people and they all come to you. Hey, Eric, I tried this and it's fucking good. And you're like, oh shit, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of how I feel is going to be based on tournament results because I don't play a lot of quote casual CDH.
Yeah.
Like, because my time is invaluable. And so I spend it specifically for tournaments and testing for tournaments. So I don't care what your Korvold did at your local 10 people. Like, no offense. I want to see what the deck can do in a tournament. And so far in the tournaments, it has not done well. Obviously, there's been like 4 decks. Somebody had a neutral record. That's about it. So I'm following that pretty closely. So until it like gets a top 16 and then it starts consistently top 16, if that's possible, And unfortunately, for people to want to gravitate towards the deck, if at all, because people weren't gravitating towards it outside of like Korvold fans to begin with,
Yeah.
it's got to produce a result. So it's going to have a good player behind it, a good deck list, and just happen to get a little bit lucky that day.
That's how I feel with Tevish Crom. I feel like Tevish Crom was going down, and then the ban happened. And like, I'm not gonna sell my Tevishes, right? I have a graded Tevish. I have the Japanese. I gotta work on that deck, and I don't think it's just gonna be poof. Here's a deck list. Let's do this. Like, I think there's gonna be a lot of hard work, and I
So
don't know if a lot of people nowadays, the modern, oh, this deck list, I'm gonna play this guy's deck list and play. I don't think a lot of people
yeah,
are putting in that work like they probably should. And maybe Corvo will make a comeback. Maybe in 6 months. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe in 2 years.
yeah.
We don't know.
All it takes is one card to print. Like that's it. Like it literally just
Right.
takes
Right.
one card. Like
But
if
the
you
only
made a
nightmare, that
yeah, that card. Oh, and we didn't even go over the fact that like there's loops in the deck with 6. You know, that 6 basically is like an engine on its own as well. That also allows you to hit your land drops and those types of things. That's a powerful card in
so good.
yeah,
It's one of my
specifically in
favorite cards.
Korvold. It's pretty great.
Okay.
But
So there's hope.
yeah,
There's hope.
I-
There's not a
there's always
tombstone
hope.
yet. There's hope. Okay.
there's always hope when they're printing Modern Horizon sets. When they're printing those kind of sets, there's always hope.
Was that every 2 years?
We get a modern set every year now, so
Really? Well, Modern Horizons 2 and the Modern Horizons 3, I believe, was 3 years different.
right. But like the year before that, we basically got a Modern Horizons, which was just Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're
So
right.
like this next year, we get Final Fantasy and Marvel.
Ooh, Captain
Yeah.
America. Come on. That's fun.
Yeah, sadly, he is supposedly blue, red, and white, which is like the most
know.
cliche thing they could possibly do. But I
wanted,
get
like,
it.
an evil Captain. I wanted the Winter Soldier to be like Jund.
Yeah, I'm hoping Doctor Doom is Jun. That's like what I'm really, really hoping because Doctor Doom is like my favorite.
He's mono black. There's no way.
But
Dr.
yeah,
Doom.
as long as we have those things, we just need a card that's like a good bridge card. It doesn't have to be broken. It just needs to be decent. Like if you printed Impulsive Pilferer that was a 2-mana 2/2, then made 2 treasures when it died and had its same ability, that would be perfect. Just something very simple. And trust me, I've scoured Scryfall, all these different like to look at something that like, okay, what makes like, is there anything that makes like scions? Is there something that makes spawns and multiples of them? You know, just something to get the engine going. And there just really isn't anything that just makes enough.
Like that little thing that you're just talking about. Hey, it's the Black Market Connections. It's a changeling. That's a goblin.
Yeah.
That's a this. That's a that. Yeah, little stuff.
And
like
again,
that.
it's the small things that the deck's taking advantage of, like it being able to sack Discard Prospector for mana. And again, it's not a great thing, and you typically don't even use that ability on Black Market Connections, but it's an option. And another thing too, I think with the format slowing down, Carpet of Flowers stocks go up. So
yeah.
So that's a positive.
And I don't think, besides Mana Crypt, I don't think Blue got hit at all. Like, I think Blue Farm's still the best deck.
I'm shocked if it is, because I think losing literally Jeweled Lotus, Mana Crypt, and Dockside was really hard for that deck, because the deck has already really struggled with mana.
Well, that just made the Crom plan good. And like, I feel like Roxai and Blue Farm, Dockside wasn't the card. Like, it was nice to just shut your brain off and tutor for a Dockside, right? But I've played against probably 5-10 games against Blue Farm. The game plan is still engine turn 1, turn 2, draw a million cards, watch my opponent fumble, and then I just Cavern of Souls, Grand Abolisher. Like, that's still the game plan of why it's so good, right?
But that game plan only works if the games go long.
Yeah, but the format got slower. There's more stacks now. Esper Control is really good now, right? So
what Esper Control deck is good?
Well, I just feel like the Tivits, the Atraxas, maybe Zur can come back a little bit. Maybe all those fringe decks that just lost because they wasn't playing red. Now the TNT's back, right? TNT's playing Collector Hoops. TNT's playing those stacks effects. Maybe, those Sans red decks come back. I don't know. It's a new meta. Prove me wrong, but I have to see someone dethrone Blue Farm, because Blue Farm has won every major event. Right, but I'm with you though. Like, it definitely took.
But it hasn't won. But it hasn't won every major event though.
Well, since I'm talking about before ban, every huge event, it was Blue Farm or almost Blue Farm, like the Invitational, the Boyle One, or not that was Kennen. The other, what's the other ones? The Top Deck one I went to. All the names sound the same, but majority of it. But I am excited, like moving forward from the bands. I am excited that it is going to be a new meta. But I am just like you, where I'm kind of skeptical of like, do we really need it? Like, we just went slower. I feel like we went back 5 years, but we're in modern age. The cards are better than they were 5 years ago. Right. So
Yeah, I can agree with that. I just don't think that like because I mean, I don't Matt and we basically broke down the statistics every month and every quarter. And while Blue Farm was the most successful deck, Nadu was winning a lot of the larger events. Like towards the end, Rogsai was probably the most breakout deck performance out in terms of like older decks that kind of revitalized. Zane won a platinum level event with Rogsai. So, and Rogsai also won Punt City 3, the tournament that I played in, the platinum event there. So it was right there. And it doesn't matter that Blue Farm won. Blue Farm won on a 99% outer. Like when you look at that tournament was dominated by Rogsai, like 100%.
Right.
So
that's a Rogsai tournament. Yeah.
Well, it was a Rogsai meta for probably the last 3 months before the ban. So, Blue Farm was like it's always a good deck. It's inherently effectively the Jund of CEDH. It's just the good stuff deck. Yeah. To steal that term from other things. And it's it's obviously got good cards, but I think that ultimately, unless something happens, people are going to realize like it's kind of hard to cast double white, double blue, double black in a deck without Dockside Extortionist. You have to make a concession somewhere. You can't just jam the same cards and expect the same results. It won't work. You have to either add more talismans, play creatures that produce mana, like Professional Facebreaker, if you're on the Grand Abolisher plan in terms of Cavern Souls named humans. Like the...
Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, it was just like the Brian Korvold list of Blue Farm, where it was more attack-based strategy, and then the Crom was the secondary backup plan. But if you look how he won that tournament because he turned like won a Crom. So,
Right. I just feel
with
like
off of a Jewel Lotus.
Yeah, the best part about that deck, especially since Lord of the Rings, it was Turn 1 Ristics, Orcish Bowmasters, Born Upon a Wind. Like, that helped the deck so much, just like it did Roxai. And they didn't ban Bowmasters, they didn't ban Ristic Study, and that was what the deck was really good at. And then maybe the Timnus strategy comes back a little bit. But I'm with you, like, I'm a Tevish Crom guy. Like, the best thing about the Tevish Crom deck was an early Crom, early counterbalances, early engines, and then the turn 1 Tevishes were nice, but it wasn't what the deck was good at, because Tevish was the backup, right? But now it's flipped, where Crom's probably never ever castable ever until like the later games. So maybe we'll see. I played a lot of Roxai. I don't think Roxai is the best deck. I think it definitely got hurt for sure. Maybe Kennen comes up. Maybe it's not just I think median.
Well, I don't think there is a best deck right now. So because there's not enough information, enough data out there. But if you think it's hard to say that Rogsai got affected when all the same cards left Blue Farm outside of Jewel Lotus. Rogsai was never a Jewel Lotus deck. Right. So if you're taking Mana Crypt and Dockside from both decks, the deck that already produces a lot of mana still produces a lot of mana.
It's just main phase ad nauseums probably aren't the thing anymore with no mana extra, right? It's instant ad nauseums now. The necropotencies are probably going to be necro for 10, and then win, right?
I mean,
me playing the game, like, Mana Crypt is the biggest hit. Like, without Mana Crypt sucks post Nas, right? So I have to play my game a little longer. But no, I'm with you. I think Kennen and Roxai are the number 1 and 2 that came out of the ban for sure. But again, I still have to see it. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that Tivit is gonna. I mean, Tivit's probably gonna be there just because it's a good cards deck. Mm-hmm. But to literally lose Jewel Lotus and Mana Crypt that cast your 6 mana commander, kind of difficult in my opinion.
It's just going to be hard. It's not going to be, you have to be okay with it being a 6-mana card that you can't cheat into play.
With Tivit and Atraxa, that's what the deck was bad at, is playing their commander early. Right? That was the worst thing that deck did. With Atraxa, it was only good as I have 1,000,000 mana, I'm doing the Displacer Kit and Atraxa thing, or it's a food chain outlet. With Tivit, it's not turn 2 Tivit, turn 3 Time Sieve. No, it was turn 4, turn 5 Tivit, and then I just have the game here. That's what the strategies are best at. But I agree with you. I wouldn't bring
I'm not comedian, so I can't speak on his experience, but
yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I've never lost a game to Tivit where the Tivit wasn't the main plan.
Okay.
So if Tivit comes down early, Tivit dominates the board. And if you look at Tivit's early success, that's how Tivit was played. It was played as a turbo deck.
Yeah.
With backup auxiliary pieces. And then Tivit, if you, again, like I told you, we looked at the numbers regularly every month. Mm-hmm. Tivit had a big decline because people started making it more like, oh, I'm going to run Karn. I'm going to run this 4-drop. I'm going to do this. Versus having a defined game plan. When it was the Urza-based version, is probably when its win percentage was the highest.
The highest. Okay, I got you. Well, when I played Tivit, it was like turn 3, turn 4 Tivit, and then I do 2 treasures on the ETB. Y'all give me clues. 2 treasures, crack it, Time Sieve, Fierce Guard, backup. Like the turn I'm playing Tivit, the turn I'm casting my Time Sieve, right? Or Transmute Artifact, it was the next turn I cast Tivit. So I'm with you on that. Like that's statistics for sure. But I wouldn't bring. I think the cut of Dockside in general and the Mana Crypts and the Jewel Lotuses, I think commanders over 5 mana are kind of way rougher now to cast.
They are way rougher. The only thing about the whole like main phase ad nauseum, I think green ad naus decks are going to be your best option in terms of main phase ad nauseums. We've already seen Larry Park just win an event with Najeela, with Turbo Najeela, running Warren Soul Trader and Chatterfang, and he turned 2 ad nauseum, main phase and 1. Because the deck has access, yes. And Larry Park, right? Yeah. You got to think, it's when you get green and red together, you're going to get both Spirit Guides and Tinderwall. You get a lot of mana that way by playing a green supported Nas strategy. You can still have all your other colors like blue. Like that's why I like Thras Vial, because it's a green based Nas strategy with blue support.
I think you just hate white.
I just don't it's not that I hate white. It's just that white isn't like, I think like Blue's Clues, that deck was quite good. I really enjoyed that deck quite a bit, but you know, losing Chthonian Nightmare is kind of hard. I still think the deck's very playable.
Is it?
Then it just becomes like 4-color Rogsai at that point.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but if I'm looking at it for like how I'm trying to play the deck, if I'm trying to still be a turbo player, then it makes no sense to play a slower strategy. Then I would want to play a strategy that supplements what I'm trying to do. And white isn't a fast unless I get a magical turn to Smothering Tithe, you know, something like that.
Ooh, yeah. Land, Mana Vault, Chromox, Smothering Tithe wins games, but that's the dream. That's funny, but all right, man. We can talk for hours. I appreciate it, and we can agree to disagree. I for one am excited to see what the Boil and what 2025 has in store. I can't wait to see what the meta is, and maybe there's not a top deck. Maybe the bands was good. Who knows? Maybe Dockside comes back. Maybe with the NT Wizards taking over the RC, maybe they're going to unban Jewel Lotus. That's what I hear. Who knows? It's up in the air. But I appreciate you doing this again, brother. I appreciate your time.
Sure.
You're fucking awesome to talk to. I might just post that other podcast one day just because it was so good. Like, fuck it, I don't care, right? But that's another episode of the books. I appreciate everyone for watching, listening. Go play some CDH. Sleeve up Korvold like I am. Let's have some magic. Let's play some magic. I'll see you guys later.